Doctor Strange going through some mandated reshoots right now, and it's kind of making me sick to my stomach. So if you guys didn't see it, obviously the MCU does reshoots, but Bruce Campbell, longtime collaborator and friend of Sam Raimi, who is directing Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, is saying that Marvel is putting Sam through the paces with mandated reshoots, rewrites, to align more closely with projects that will be coming out after Multiverse of Madness, and removing certain story elements that were present in the film before these reshoots. But let's just take a look at the video, and we'll let Bruce explain it. But this is troublesome news to me, at least. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but what we don't want is the director's vision to be compromised in any way. We know that Edgar Wright left Ant-Man over these creative differences. Scott Derrickson left Doctor Strange for the same reason. And Sam Raimi came in. Of course, everyone in the comic book community, film community, pretty much everyone loves Sam Raimi. He's made some of the essential superhero films of the past, as well as his forays into horror films. He's just a very well respected within the industry, and for good reason. So compromising his vision in any way seems kind of fucky. But if he, signed on to do this movie and he's like, whatever you guys want me to do is fine, as long as I get the chance to finish my Spider-Man movies and I get to make a Spider-Man 4, then whatever. If that's the case, then we're all happy. But let's take a look.
Marvel guys, they make 8 of these movies at the same time, so they're always updating storylines. So my buddy Sam has had to add scenes that they told him he had to shoot, and he's removed scenes that no longer apply. So until May rolls around, I don't think Benedict Cumberbatch even knows if he's in this movie or not. Marvel.
So that's the statement. And, I mean, sure, you could, brush it off. Whatever, it's not a big deal. But I think it is kind of a big deal, especially if it compromises the overall quality of the film. And are we going to have to go through, if Multiverse of Madness doesn't hit, and I think it will. I think it will be a hit. But let's say it comes out and it's like an Eternals situation, Fans aren't really digging it that much. Doesn't do that great at the box office. Critics are kind of harsh on it. In this wild scenario, and I do not foresee this happening at all, but in this scenario, are we or are we not immediately going to get a Change.org petition for release the Raimi cut? I don't think I can do another release the director cut #campaign, guys. I can't do it. So hopefully it isn't stuff that is integral to the story in sort of character development and overall cohesion, and it's just silly little things that Marvel was like, okay, maybe the scene with the Illuminati needs to tease Galactus or something. You know what I mean? If it's that, then fine. But if it's compromising the story and the characters to hand-fist some bullshit in, then it's a little bit scuffed. And, of course, I believe Sam Raimi's going to make a great film, but are we going to get a watered-down version of Sam Raimi's movie of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Is that what is going to end up happening? I hope not, but it's certainly a possibility, and we'll never know. Of course, these reshoots are mandated for specific story reasons, not because, oh, we have some more money, go in and do some more cool shit that you wanted to do that we couldn't previously due to budget constraints. because Bruce Campbell's out here blatantly saying things need to be taken out and things need to be added to fit into this narrative that we're crafting over the next 5 years. And the biggest issue with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is, and you guys can disagree with me on this or agree with me, whatever, in my personal opinion, I think the biggest issue with the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the lack of autonomy that creators and directors are given on the films, and their lack of voice. They, especially recently, all of them have felt very, very similar. And you're getting into phase 4, and I like Shang-Chi, but was disappointed by Eternals. Black Widow just is not good. So, I'm a little bit worried, and I haven't been super high on most of the Marvel Cinematic Universe shows either. And I think that's the double-edged sword when you have this amazing interconnected cinematic universe like we've never seen before that everyone loves so much. And it's like, if you miss the movie, then you're missing an essential part of the lore. You're missing an essential part of the story that is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. If you miss an episode of one of their shows, then you're missing out on important information or yada, yada, yada. But what's more important to you guys, the lore of the MCU, the interconnectivity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the story being told, the specific stories being told? Would you sacrifice interconnectivity for more solid, well-told stories like Daredevil or The Batman, which of course connects to nothing, and I think is one of the best superhero movies ever made? So, let me know in chat. What do you think? I'm just a little worried about it. I'm not super worried. I think it's still going to be a great movie. I think it's going to be fun. But always in the back of my head, there's going to be like, what was that? What were the original plans? What was cut? If we don't get an answer, I'm always going to think that, like, what did we miss out on? Could this movie have been a little tighter? Could this story thread have been closed a little bit or resolved more successfully if we didn't have to add in this little scene here? And I know one director that has come out and said that they've been pretty much allowed to do whatever they wanted to do is James Gunn. But we know for a fact that Marvel came in and told him, hey, we need Ego to be in this, and we need him to be a Celestial, and then you can do what you want from there. So that was sort of the mandate there. And then they came into the first film, and they said, we need this to be an Infinity Stone. So we need some more scenes explaining the Infinity Stones. We need you to add in the Collector scene where he explains the origin of the Infinity Stones, what they are, what they do, so we can set up Thanos later on. That's literally what happened. So, I mean, did those decisions negatively affect the Guardians movies? Because we know what the decisions were. It was Ego and it was the Power Stone. I would say no. I think that was going to be a MacGuffin regardless in the first movie. Making the Power Stone actually makes it more interesting, the interconnectivity part. But we do have to wonder what's going on here. And with somebody so tenured and respected and experienced as Sam Raimi, he's not like these other directors that they've gotten recently who had never really directed a major motion picture in their lives. John Watts never directed a movie before Spider-Man Homecoming. Chloe Zhao, Daniel Creston, who directed Shang-Chi. They bring in smaller directors because most of these people most of the directors, and I don't fault them at all, I would say yes in a heartbeat. If I had done a few short films and they came up to me and said, hey, do you want to make Spider-Man 4? I'd be like, yes, I do, actually, thank you. But, their inexperience allows Marvel and Kevin Feige to control the narrative of their story more, and they have less autonomy because they're less experienced. Sam Raimi is somebody that's not really like that. And Edgar Wright obviously wasn't, and Scott Derrickson wasn't. So these tenured directors, when they were told you have to change your movie because it doesn't fit the narrative we want to tell, they said, okay, bye, see ya, talk to you later. I'm not going to compromise my own vision for something else. So I would assume that either it's not a big deal in this case for Multiverse of Madness, or Sam has been promised something and doesn't care as long as he gets to that, which I would assume would be another Spider-Man. So, Garrick, which MCU phase did you enjoy the most? Phase 2? Phase 2, probably. Phase 2, yeah. Quality of a movie is way more important than connection. Agree. I'll take a Daredevil over 1,000 Ant-Mans for sure. I think Phase 4 has been weaker so far is because it doesn't hint anything yet that leads to a big finale. I don't think that's the reason. I mean, there have already been hints of, like, where it's going. I don't think any bigger hints were ever laid down in Phase 1 or 2 other than, you know, Thanos popping up occasionally. And he was like, okay, well, Thanos exists. Are we going to do anything about it? But, like, this sort of stuff exists already in Phase 4. Imagine if every creator given a green light to do whatever, you would have contradicted movies going in different directions instead of one universe. Yeah, of course. But that's the trade-off, is would you rather have a transcendent film starring Black Widow, or would you rather have a dog shit film starring Black Widow, but it connects to the MCU more cohesively? So, yeah. I mean, take a look at the DC Extended Universe. Now, the DC Extended Universe isn't perfect, but we have a few examples of this in that they're the same fucking thing, right? DC Extended Universe and MCU, they're the same thing. One's DC, one's Marvel. Both interconnected universes. But recently, we've gotten the Suicide Squad, which I think is one of the best superhero films made, definitely in like the past 5 years. Not really that connected to anything else, not really setting anything else up. They sort of just said, James Gunn, what do you want to do? And James said, I want to do Suicide Squad, and they let him do whatever he wanted. They gave him full autonomy to kill anyone. He literally said, I could have killed Harley Quinn, and they said, no problem. You know what I'm saying? So, I'd rather have the Suicide Squad than Black Widow, or Shang-Chi, or Eternals, any day of the fucking week. And Suicide Squad does not connect to the greater DC Extended Universe in any real meaningful way, other than it sets up Peacemaker. Another instance of a creator-driven show that far exceeds anything in the MCU, in my personal opinion, other than Daredevil. I think Daredevil's probably a little bit better than Peacemaker, but Peacemaker's very, very good. And you're taking story, characters, quality over interconnectivity. And I'll take that every day of the fucking week. Birds of Prey, same thing. Shazam, similar. Love Shazam. So I think there are some instances where DC is doing it a little better in terms of quality storytelling, prioritizing that over interconnectivity. Now, there's some stinkers in the DC Extended Universe, don't get me wrong. There's some god-awful stinkers. Wonder Woman 84, Aquaman's not that good, although I think Aquaman's a ton of fun. It's really not that great, but it is like a big spectacle movie. There's some stinkers. And you're going to get some stinkers. In either case, there's going to be some misses. But a lot more interesting hits in the DC realm recently in my personal opinion. Even Joker, which, take it or leave it, is something Marvel would never do in a million years, and it made $1 billion, and it was rated R. Batman is cracked $750 million, and it's a 3-hour noir film. You would never get that in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I think it's give and take. Do we want lore? Do we want interesting, compelling, self-contained stories? That's how I see it. Now, could DC put out a bunch of interconnected movies that suck ass? Maybe. I mean, The Flash, a lot of issues going on with that. Trying to reboot the series, running into problems with their star. That doesn't really have anything to do with the quality of the film, but it's obviously it's going to set the stage for where the DC Extended Universe is going in the future. So it's going to be the major interconnected movie. Is it going to sacrifice some of that creator driven stuff for interconnectivity? That's the question, and that's the trade-off. That's the double-edged sword. So that's my take on it. Take it or leave it. It is what it is. Marvel is getting comfortable. They're not hungry anymore. They got too much money and clout. They're feeling themselves, and they think they can't mess up. That's probably a little bit true. I don't think the MCU movies are unwatchable, but there's certainly been some stinkers. I love Shang-Chi. I think Shang-Chi's a ton of fun. There's a few things that could be changed for Shang-Chi to be a lot better, but I think it's good. Will The Flash get canceled after Ezra Miller's firing? Ezra Miller's not getting fired, and it's not getting canceled. Okay, so that's my take on the whole, solo shit versus cinematic universe stuff. But speaking.